I, Evelyn Turner, at 45, found myself standing at the edge of a precipice I never imagined. Richard, my husband of 15 years, stood before me, his eyes a mirror of disdain and frustration that had been brewing over the years. "You're nothing but a leech, Evelyn. If you're so unhappy, why don't you just leave?" His words, laced with venom, cut through the tense silence of our living room. I looked at him. This man I had shared over a decade of my life with, and felt a strange sense of detachment. The beercan he flung at me, still dripping down my face, was a cold testament to how far we had fallen. The sticky liquid on my skin was nothing compared to the sting of his words. "Fine, I will," I retorted, the weight of my decision settling in my heart. I wasn't going to be a punching bag for his frustrations any longer. I thought back to the early days, the love that had once seemed unbreakable. We were both career-driven when we first met. I was a promising marketing professional, and he worked at the local government office. Marriage came with dreams of a happy family, a dream that slowly turned into a haunting mirage. The pressure to have a child became a silent wedge between us. I still remember the day I decided to leave my job 5 years into our marriage. The unspoken expectations from Richard's family, the pitying looks, the whispered questions. They were all too much. I thought stepping back from my career to focus on fertility treatments would ease the tension. How wrong I was. As years rolled by without the pitter-patter of little feet we so desperately longed for, Richard's patience wore thin. His once supportive demeanor turned to bitterness, each failed attempt a blow to his ego, his manhood. "Your body's just not up to it, huh?" His words from a particularly harsh argument echoed in my mind. I had borne them all, the treatments, the side effects, the crushing disappointments, and yet here I was being called a parasite. With a deep breath, I stepped over the threshold of our home, the door closing with a finality that echoed my resolve. The night air felt different now, almost liberating. The suburban street, usually quiet and unassuming, felt like the runway of a new beginning. I didn't know where this path would lead me, but one thing was clear. I was no longer the woman who would shrink under the weight of Richard's disdain. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it was mine to make. The train to my parents' house offered a fleeting escape, each passing landscape blurring into a montage of my thoughts. My parents, Robert and Diane, were a beacon of comfort in the tempest of my life. As I stepped into the familiar warmth of my childhood home, their concerned expressions were a silent testament to my unannounced arrival. "Mom, Dad, My voice faltered, the weight of my confession anchoring me to the spot. "What happened, Evelyn? You look like you've been through a storm." My mother's voice was laced with worry as she reached out, her touch a reminder of simpler times. I let out a deep sigh, the dam of my emotions breaking. "Richard and we had a fight. I couldn't stay there anymore," I confessed, the words tasting bitter. The look of shock on my parents' faces quickly turned to anger. "That man has always been a thorn," my father muttered, his disappointment in Richard never a secret. I recounted the events of the night, the years of accumulated pain spilling over. My parents listened, their expressions a mix of anger and heartbreak. They had never truly approved of Richard, but their love for me had silenced their objections. "He called me a parasite, Mom." I choked on the words, the hurt resurfacing. "A parasite? After everything you've sacrificed?" My mother's voice rose in disbelief. "You gave up your career, endured those treatments?" Her words were a painful reminder of the life I had left behind. I had been a rising star in the marketing world, full of ambition and ideas, but the desire to start a family, fueled by societal expectations and familial pressures, had led me down a different path. Richard's support had been my solace during those trying times. But as each treatment failed, his patience waned, replaced by a bitterness that poisoned our marriage. The man who once held my hand through every doctor's visit had transformed into a stranger, his frustrations often unloaded onto me. My father's voice pulled me back from my reverie. "You don't deserve this, Evelyn. You've been more than patient with that man." Their words, though comforting, were a stark reminder of the reality I now faced. I was no longer part of a we. It was just me, standing at the crossroads of my life. As I lay in my old bedroom that night, the moonlight streaming through the window, I made a silent vow. Richard would see the woman he had underestimated. This was not just about leaving a failed marriage. It was about reclaiming the parts of me that I had lost along the way. The dawn of the next day was more than just a new morning. It marked the beginning of my journey towards self-reclamation and retribution. The days following my return to my parents' home were a blend of healing and introspection. Amidst the nurturing care of my family, I found myself reflecting on the years lost to a marriage that had become a shadow of its promise. It was time to step out of that shadow. I set up a small workspace in the corner of my old room, my laptop, an old friend welcoming me back. The world of marketing, once my arena of triumph, beckoned me again. I started reaching out to contacts, piecing together a freelance consulting business. It felt like awakening from a long slumber. "Remember, Evelyn, you were always meant for more than what that man allowed you to be," my father said one morning, his words a bolstering force. I found solace in the rhythm of work, the challenges a welcome distraction. My expertise, once set aside to fulfill the role of a hopeful mother and neglected wife, now became my weapon of independence. Then, one evening, as I sat immersed in a project, my phone buzzed. It was Richard. My heart skipped a beat, a mix of apprehension and anger bubbling within. "Evelyn, we need to talk. You can't just leave things like this." His voice was a mix of frustration and feigned concern. "Talk? Now you want to talk, Richard?" I countered, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "You're overreacting. Come back and we'll sort this out. You belong here with me," he said, a tinge of command in his tone. I scoffed, the audacity of his words igniting a fire within me. "Belong with you? As what, Richard? Your punching bag, your scapegoat for everything that's gone wrong?" There was a pause, and I could almost hear the cogs turning in his mind, searching for a retort. "Evelyn, you're being unreasonable. This is your home," he finally said, his voice laced with a false calm. "Unreasonable? No, Richard. For years, I've been the reasonable one, accommodating your moods, your failures, your bitterness. I've lost myself in the process, and I'm not willing to lose any more." The conversation ended with a deafening silence on his end. I hung up, a sense of liberation coursing through me. It was the first time I had spoken back, the first time I had refused to be overshadowed by his ego. As days turned into weeks, my consulting business began to flourish. The satisfaction of rebuilding my career was accompanied by a newfound confidence. I was no longer the woman Richard thought he could control. I was Evelyn Turner, a professional, a survivor, and now a fighter. This new path was not just about financial independence. It was about reclaiming my identity, my dignity. Richard's attempts to belittle my efforts only fueled my determination. The stage was set for a confrontation, and this time I was ready. The newfound strength I had discovered in myself was put to the test sooner than I expected. Richard, ever the manipulator, had grown increasingly desperate in his attempts to regain control. But I was no longer the woman who cowered under his shadow. One fateful evening, as I was finalizing a project, a knock at the door shattered the tranquility of my parents' home. There stood Richard, his face a mask of false contrition. "Evelyn, we need to talk. I've made some mistakes, but we can work through this," he pleaded, stepping into the house uninvited. My father, standing behind me, bristled with anger. "You have some nerve showing up here after what you've done," he growled. Ignoring my father, Richard's gaze fixed on me. "Evelyn, don't let your family cloud your judgment. We're married. That means something." I felt a surge of defiance. "Married? That bond shattered the moment you threw that beer can at me, Richard. What do you want?" He hesitated, and then, as if throwing caution to the wind, revealed the true reason for his visit. "I'm in trouble, Evelyn. The gambling, it's gotten out of hand. I owe a lot of money." The revelation hit me like a wave. His gambling was not just a vice. It was an addiction that had now spiraled into a crisis. "And you think I should bail you out?" I asked, incredulity lacing my words. Richard's face contorted into a sneer. "Who else do I have, Evelyn? You owe me. I supported you through all those treatments, remember?" The audacity of his words was like a slap in the face. "You think I owe you? For what? For years of neglect? For emotional abuse? For calling me a parasite?" The room was thick with tension, my parents standing in silent support behind me. Richard, realizing his usual tactics were failing, shifted his approach. "Evelyn, think about it. If I go down, you go down with me. Your precious new life will be ruined, he threatened, a desperate edge to his voice. But I was done being intimidated. No, Richard, you made your bed and now you have to lie in it. I am not responsible for your debts, your failures, or your life. Defeated and enraged, Richard stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The finality of that moment was not lost on me. I had stood up to him, unyielding and resolute. The next morning, I met with a lawyer to discuss the divorce proceedings. Richard's gambling debts were his alone, and I was determined to ensure they stayed that way. As I walked out of the lawyer's office, a sense of empowerment enveloped me. I had faced my fears, confronted my tormentor, and emerged stronger. The path ahead was not going to be easy, but I was ready for whatever challenges it brought. The days following my encounter with Richard were a whirlwind of legal meetings and emotional preparation. My lawyer, a competent and empathetic woman, guided me through the divorce proceedings with a reassuring professionalism. Yet, amidst the legalities, there was a storm of emotions brewing within me, a mix of liberation and lingering hurt. Meanwhile, Richard's situation worsened. His gambling debts had caught up with him, and his desperate attempts to find financial relief only plunged him deeper into the mire. I heard through the grapevine that his job was on the line and his reputation was in tatters. This was the karma he had earned, yet I found no joy in his downfall. "Mom, do you think I'm doing the right thing?" I asked one evening, seeking validation amidst the chaos. My mother, ever the pillar of strength, took my hand. "Evelyn, you're reclaiming your life. That's the bravest thing you can do." Her words were a balm to my troubled soul. I had spent years under Richard's shadow, and now I was stepping into the light, albeit a tumultuous one. The day I signed the divorce papers was bittersweet. On one hand, I was freeing myself from a toxic marriage. On the other, it was the end of a chapter I had once hoped would be my forever. As the reality of my new life settled in, I found solace in my work. My consulting business was not just a means of livelihood. It was a testament to my resilience and capability. Clients appreciated my expertise, and the satisfaction of successful projects was a reminder of what I had lost and found again, my professional identity. Richard, however, seemed to spiral further out of control. He tried to reach out several times, sometimes pleading, other times accusing, but I stood firm, supported by the unwavering love of my family and the newfound strength within me. One afternoon, as I was reviewing a project proposal, a call from an unknown number caught me off guard. Hesitantly, I answered, "Evelyn, you need to help me. They're going to take everything." Richard's voice, panicked and broken, echoed through the phone. "Richard, I can't help you. You've made your choices," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil his words stirred. "You don't understand, Evelyn. I'm ruined. I've lost my job, my reputation. You can't just abandon me like this," he pleaded. "Abandon you? Richard, you abandoned me long ago, in every way that mattered. I'm sorry, but you have to face the consequences of your actions." Hanging up the phone, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. Richard's fate was no longer my burden to bear. My journey ahead was mine alone, paved with the lessons of the past and the promise of a future I would shape on my own terms. The final chapter of my marriage to Richard closed with a mix of relief and introspection. My newfound independence was both exhilarating and daunting. I had weathered the storm of a crumbling marriage, and now, standing amidst the ruins, I was ready to rebuild. My consulting business was thriving, a symbol of my resilience and capability. The freedom to make my own decisions, to steer my life on my own terms, was a heady feeling. Yet, amid this newfound success, Richard's shadow occasionally loomed. News of his complete downfall trickled down to me through mutual acquaintances. He had lost his job due to his gambling scandal, his reputation irreparably tarnished. The once respected public servant was now a pariah, shunned by those he had once considered allies. One evening, as I was preparing for a client meeting, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Richard. With a deep breath, I answered, ready for whatever accusations or pleas he had this time. "Evelyn, please, I'm begging you. I have nothing left. Can't you see it in your heart to help me?" Richard's voice was a mix of desperation and self-pity. "Richard, I helped you for years. I supported you, even when you gave me nothing but pain in return. I can't be your savior anymore," I replied, my voice firm. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me suffer, "You've always been so cold, so heartless," he accused, his words laced with bitterness. I felt a twinge of anger at his accusation. Heartless? After everything I endured with you? No, Richard, I'm not heartless. I'm just no longer willing to be a victim to your choices. There was silence on the other end, and then a soft, defeated sigh. "I never thought it would come to this," he murmured, more to himself than to me. The call ended, leaving me with a mix of emotions: pity, relief, and a sense of finality. Richard's downfall was of his own making, his karma for the years of neglect and emotional abuse. As I moved forward with my life, I focused on my work and my family, the pillars of my strength. I even began planning a community project, a way to give back and connect with others. My past with Richard was a chapter closed, a lesson learned. The journey was not without its scars, but it was also filled with growth and self-discovery. I had emerged from the shadows of betrayal, stronger and more determined. My story was one of empowerment, of a woman who reclaimed her life from the clutches of a toxic marriage, and in doing so, found her true self. And so, as I sat at my desk looking out at the world that was once a daunting expanse, I realized it was now a canvas of possibilities. I had survived the storm, and now it was my time to thrive.